The sound of the compressor was a rhythmic, mechanical heartbeat that seemed to shake the very foundation of the farmhouse porch. To anyone else, it was the sound of progress, the industrial noise of a problem being solved. But to Amy Fleming, standing frozen at the top of the stairs with the wind whipping her hair across her face, it sounded like a shredder. It sounded like the noise a machine makes when it is eating the truth. She stared at the piece of paper in her hand. The University of Calgary logo was crisp and official, a blue shield against the stark white page. The words beneath it were blurry through the tears that had pooled in her eyes, but she knew them by heart now. The realization was a cold, heavy stone in her stomach. It dragged her down, pulling her through the memories of the last 2 weeks with a nauseating velocity. She saw Nathan's face in the moonlight, his eyes full of concern as he told her about the inspector. She felt the warmth of his hand on her shoulder when he offered to move the horses. She heard the smooth, confident cadence of his voice as he laid the contract on the kitchen table, offering salvation with one hand while holding the pen with the other. It had all been performance. Every smile, every touch, every moment of shared vulnerability, it was all just choreography designed to lead her to this exact moment. A desperate, broken woman signing over her birthright to the man who had painted a target on her back. The sound snapped Amy out of her trance. Down by the barn, one of the men in the white Tyvek suits had raised the wand. A jet of water and chemical solvent burst forth, hitting the gravel with enough force to send stones scattering. He adjusted his grip, turning toward the feed room door. He was seconds away from erasing the crime scene. Amy didn't think. She didn't calculate. She reacted with the primal, fierce instinct.
Stop.
Her voice was lost in the roar of the diesel engine. The man in the suit didn't hear her. He took a step toward the barn, the wand raised like a weapon. Amy vaulted down the porch steps, skipping the last 2 and landing hard on the gravel. She didn't feel the impact. She ran. The distance between the house and the barn felt miles long. The air was thick with the smell of bleach and diesel exhaust. Amy waved her arms, screaming again, but the noise of the machinery was a wall she couldn't break through. The worker squeezed the trigger. The water jet hissed. Amy threw herself between the man and the door. The water hit her denim jacket with the force of a punch, soaking her instantly, cold and chemical smelling. She gasped, stumbling back against the wood of the barn door, but she didn't move. She spread her arms out, blocking the entrance with her body. The worker recoiled, releasing the trigger. The hiss died instantly. He lifted his safety goggles, staring at her, as if she were insane. "Whoa, lady. You trying to get blinded?" The foreman, a burly man with a clipboard who had been supervising from the truck, came jogging over, waving his hand to cut the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. The only sound was Amy's ragged breathing and the drip of water from her jacket onto the dry earth. She was shivering, not from the cold, but from the adrenaline that was coursing through her veins like fire. "Miss Fleming? What is the problem? We're on a schedule here?" Mr. Bartlett paid for a rush job. Amy pushed wet hair out of her face.
Pack it up.
"Excuse me?"
You heard me. Pack up your equipment. Roll up the hoses.
"Ma'am, we have a contract. Half the money is already in the bank. If we leave now, you don't get a refund. And that mold is going to keep eating your wall."
There is no mold.
The foreman looked at his crew, then back at Amy. He looked annoyed, the impatience of a man dealing with a hysterical client written all over his face. "Look," the inspector said.
I don't care what the inspector said. The inspector is a liar. And if you touch this barn with that chemical, if you wash away one single flake of that paint, I will sue you for destruction of evidence in a criminal investigation.
The word criminal hung in the air, heavy and threat-laden. The foreman stiffened. He looked at Amy's face, searching for a bluff. He didn't find one. He saw a woman who was pushed to the edge and was ready to push back. He sighed, capping his pen with a loud click. "All right, it's your dime, lady. But I'm noting this on the invoice. Client refused remediation."
Note whatever you want. Just go.
The foreman signaled to his crew. The men in the Tyvek suits shrugged, dropped the hoses, and began to walk back to the truck. They moved with the same indifference they had arrived with, completely unaware of the drama they had just walked out of. Amy stayed where she was, her back pressed against the barn door, guarding it until the last hose was coiled and the truck engine roared back to life. She watched them back down the driveway, the white van disappearing around the bend, taking the threat of erasure with them. Only then did she let her shoulders drop. Wind blowing through the trees as she turned around and looked at the feed room door. The red tape was still there, flapping in the wind. The condemned sticker was still bright orange and offensive, but now it wasn't a death sentence. It was a mistake, a forgery. She reached out and touched the wood of the door frame. It felt solid. It felt real. It wasn't rotting. It was just a barn. Her barn. Amy took a steadying breath, her hand lingering on the familiar grain of the doorframe. The memory of red tape fluttering in the wind flashed in her mind, the word condemned stamped across brighter days. But now she knew the truth. The mold was nothing more than peeling paint, a lie meant to scare her away from the home she loved. Her phone trembled in her hand as she dialed the number. The inspector's line rang twice before a clipped, professional voice answered. "Environmental health. This is Deidre speaking."
Hi, this is Amy Fleming from Heartland. I need to speak to whoever condemned my barn last week.
There was a pause, the shuffling of paperwork. "I can pull up the file. What's your concern, ma'am?" Amy pressed her palm firmer against the wood, letting its strength steady her resolve.
There's no mold. Your report was based on a fraudulent sample. I have the lab results that prove it. It's old paint, that's all. I want you to come back and see for yourself.
A longer silence now, the kind that signals the shifting of gears. "If you have evidence, we're required to follow up. Can you email it to us?"
I'll send it right now, but I want you here today. You put this tape up in front of my neighbors and my family. I want you to take it down in front of them too.
Half an hour later, the inspector's truck rolled up the drive. Amy stood her ground beside the barn, the official lab report clutched in her hand. Lou and Jack watched from the porch, arms folded, pride and worry mingling on their faces. Deidre stepped out, clipboard in hand, eyes wary. "Miss Fleming, I understand you have new evidence?" Amy handed her the report, her fingers steady despite everything.
Read it. The test for black mold was negative. The swab you sent in was saturated with blue pigment. The lab says it's latex paint. You can check the barcode yourself.
Deidre scanned the papers, her brow furrowing. She turned to the barn, peeling back a strip of the red tape and comparing the sample area to the photo on her phone. "You're right. This isn't a fungal bloom. It's chipped paint that reacted to moisture."
So you'll take down the tape? Reverse the condemnation?
For a moment, Deidre looked almost sheepish. She nodded and motioned to her assistant. "We're obliged to remove the tape and update the status on the county records. This building is safe. You can return to normal use." Amy watched as the tape was peeled away, the orange condemned sticker pulled off and crumpled in Deidre's hand. The inspector scribbled a note on her clipboard, then signed off on the doorframe with a new bright green sticker. "Hygienic released." Amy exhaled, tears pricking her eyes, not from fear or defeat, but from the bone-deep relief of vindication. She pressed her palm into the wood once more, feeling the barn's heartbeat drum against her skin. It was solid. It was real. It was safe. And it was hers. Footsteps approached from behind, slow, hesitant crunching on the gravel. Amy turned. Lou was standing 10 feet away. She looked exhausted, her coat hanging open, her face pale. She was holding her breath, waiting to see which version of Amy was going to turn around, the sister who trusted her, or the sister who defended Nathan. Amy looked at Lou. She saw the dark circles under her eyes. She saw the dust on her boots from the trek to the lab. She saw the fierce, protective love that had driven Lou to break into a university at dawn, just to save Amy from herself. The shame hit Amy then, a hot, stinging wave. She had called Lou paranoid. She had pushed her away. She had chosen the comfortable lie over the difficult sister. Amy walked toward her. She didn't run this time. She walked with a heavy, purposeful stride. She stopped in front of Lou. She reached into her wet pocket and pulled out the damp, crumpled lab report. She smoothed it out against her palm.
You were right.
Lou let out a breath, her shoulders sagging as the tension left her body.
Amy.
No, don't say it. You don't have to be gracious about this. I was so blind. I let him in here. I let him hold Lindy. I let him make me feel like I couldn't survive without him.
Tears spilled over Amy's lashes again, mixing with the water on her cheeks.
And all the while, you were the only one actually fighting for us.
Lou stepped forward and pulled Amy into a hug. It was fierce and tight, the kind of hug that anchors you to the earth when the rest of the world has floated away. Amy buried her face in Lou's shoulder, sobbing into the wool of her coat.
We're okay. We stopped it.
Not yet.
Amy pulled back. She wiped her face with her sleeve. The sadness in her eyes was hardening into something else, something colder. She looked at the lab report in her hand, then handed it to Lou.
Keep this. Put it somewhere safe.
I will.
We need him here, Lou. He thinks he won. He thinks the cleaners are scrubbing away his mess right now. I'll call him in now when I have the solid evidence ready with me.
Amy looked up at the farmhouse. Jack was standing on the porch, watching them. He looked old and tired, but his jaw was set. He knew.
I want him to look me in the eye. I want him to stand on this porch and tell me to my face that he didn't do it.
Amy turned and began to walk back toward the house. Her boots crunched on the gravel, a steady, rhythmic march. She wasn't just walking back to the kitchen. She was walking into the ring. The victim was gone. The horse trainer was gone. The head of the family had returned. Heavy screen door slamming shut, followed by the dripping of water onto linoleum. The kitchen was warm, smelling of coffee and old wood, a stark contrast to the cold, chemical reality outside. Amy stood just inside the door, her wet denim jacket clinging to her shoulders, water pooling around her boots. She was shivering, but the tremors had nothing to do with the temperature. They were the aftershocks of a paradigm shift. Jack was standing by the sink, his hands gripping the edge of the counter until his knuckles were white. He had seen the cleaning crew leave. He had seen the confrontation from the window. He turned slowly to face his granddaughter. He didn't ask what happened. He looked at her eyes, hard, clear, and devoid of the confusion that had clouded them for weeks, and he knew. The siege was broken. The walls had held. Lisa sat at the table, her hands folded over a cooling cup of tea. She watched Amy with a mixture of relief and apprehension. She knew that stopping the cleaners was only the first step. The real work, the ugly work, was about to begin.
You called him?
Not yet, but I'm going to.
Amy walked over to the wall phone. She moved with a mechanical precision, stripping off her wet jacket and letting it fall to the floor in a heavy, sodden heap. She didn't care about the mess. She picked up the receiver. The dial tone hummed in her ear, a monotonous waiting sound. She punched in the numbers. She knew them by heart. It made her sick to realize that. She had memorized his number not out of necessity, but out of affection. No, those digits felt like the combination to a safe she wished she had never opened. The line rang. Once, Twice. Amy took a breath. She closed her eyes for a second, visualizing a steel door slamming shut over her heart. She locked away the hurt. She locked away the betrayal. She locked away the woman who had thought Nathan Price was charming.
Amy, everything all right? I saw the cleaners leaving. Did they finish early? Did they finish early?
His voice was casual. Easy. The voice of a man who thought he had already won the game and was just waiting for the trophy presentation.
No, I sent them away.
There was a pause on the other end, a beat of calculated silence.
You sent them away? Amy, the longer that mold sits there, the more damage it does to the structure. You can't ignore a biohazard.
We need to talk, Nathan.
We can talk later. Right now, you need to get that crew back. I can call the foreman for you if you want. I have his direct line.
Of course he did. He probably had him on speed dial right next to the inspector.
No. I need you to come out here.
Amy, I have meetings in town. Can't this wait until dinner?
It's about the contract.
Another pause. This one was different. It was the silence of a shark sensing blood in the water.
The contract?
There are details, things I didn't see before. I need you to walk me through them, in person.
She let the bait hang there. She knew exactly what he was hearing. He was hearing hesitation. He was hearing a woman getting cold feet about the logistics, not the sale. He was hearing a deal that was 99% done but needed one last push.
Okay, I understand. It's a big decision. I can be there in 20 minutes.
Good. We'll be waiting.
She didn't say goodbye. She simply pulled the phone away from her ear and placed it back on the cradle. Amy turned to face the room. Jack was watching her with a dark, satisfied expression. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his favorite pocket knife, the one with the bone handle. He unfolded the blade.
20 minutes.
Yes.
Good. That gives me time to change my boots.
Jack walked out of the kitchen, his stride heavy and purposeful. Lisa stood up, walking over to Amy. She reached out and brushed a stray lock of wet hair from Amy's forehead. Are you sure you're ready for this?
Yes.
Lou was waiting at the bottom of the steps. She had cleaned herself up as best she could, splashing water on her face from the garden hose and tying her hair back. She looked up at Amy.
Is he coming?
He's on his way.
Lou nodded. She walked up the steps and stood beside her sister. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They stood shoulder to shoulder, gazing out at the driveway. A moment later, the screen door creaked open. Jack stepped out. He had changed into his clean vest and his good hat. He walked to the railing and leaned against it, looking casual in a way that was terrifyingly menacing. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves of the poplars lining the driveway. It carried the scent of pine and rain, scrubbing the air clean of the chemical smell from the barn. They waited. Minutes ticked by. The shadows stretched. The silence on the porch was absolute, heavy with the weight of the coming storm. Then, in the distance, the hum of an engine. A black SUV crested the hill. It gleamed in the sunlight, out of place against the rustic backdrop of the ranch. It moved with entitlement, kicking up dust as it sped toward the house. Amy watched it come. Her heart wasn't racing anymore. It was beating slow and hard, a war drum in her chest. The car slowed, crunching over the gravel where the cleaners had been parked just an hour ago. It came to a stop in front of the porch. The engine cut out. Amy took a breath. She felt the paper in Lou's pocket, the lab report burning in her mind. She felt the solidity of the floorboards beneath her feet. She felt the ghosts of her mother and father standing behind her. The driver's door opened. Heavy car door thudding shut as Nathan Price stepped out of the Range Rover, adjusting his suit jacket with a practiced, fluid motion. He looked every inch the savior, confident, polished, and radiating a calm authority that usually disarmed anyone in his path. He checked his watch. a subtle signal that his time was valuable before looking up at the house. His smile was ready, a warm, empathetic expression he had perfected in a dozen boardrooms. But as his gaze traveled up the porch steps, the smile faltered. It didn't disappear, but it froze, losing its warmth like a bulb burning out. They were waiting for him. Not just Amy, but the entire clan. Jack leaned against the railing, whittling a stick with a terrifying casualness. Lisa stood like a sentinel by the door. Lou was there, looking like she had been dragged through a hedge but standing with her chin high. And Amy stood front and center. She wasn't holding the contract. She wasn't holding a pen. She was standing with her arms at her sides, staring at him with a look he had never seen on her face before. It was the look of a wild horse that had finally decided to stop running and start fighting. Nathan forced his legs to move. He walked across the gravel, the sound of his dress shoes loud in the silence.
Hey, Amy, is everything okay?
He stopped at the bottom of the steps. He didn't go up. The porch felt like a fortress he hadn't been invited into.
We found something, Nathan.
Nathan's mind raced. Had the cleaners missed a spot? Had they found out?
What?
She stepped forward to the edge of the top step, looking down at him. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the lab report. She held it out.
It wasn't mold. It was paint.
Nathan looked at the paper. For a fraction of a second, his mask slipped. A flicker of genuine annoyance crossed his eyes. The annoyance of a chess player who realizes his opponent has made an illegal move. But he buried it instantly. He reached up and took the paper. He scanned the document. He took his time, letting the silence stretch, buying himself seconds to calibrate his response. He looked at the letterhead. He looked at the timestamp. He looked at the conclusion. He let out a short, incredulous breath. He looked up at Amy, his face a masterpiece of bewildered concern.
Paint? I don't understand. The sheer whiz pain. I don't understand. The report says, acrylics.
It says someone painted a black spot on my wall to mimic the mold. It says the inspector condemned my barn based on a prop.
Nathan shook his head, looking from the paper to Jack, then to Lou.
That's bizarre. Who would do something like that? Is this some kind of prank? A vandal?
He was good. He was terrifyingly good. He didn't get defensive. He didn't get angry. He joined them in their confusion, positioning himself on their side of the mystery. Amy walked down one step. She was now looming over him, invading his personal space.
It wasn't a vandal, Nathan. A vandal doesn't call the health inspector an hour later. A vandal doesn't have a multi-million-dollar acquisition contract ready to sign the moment the red tape goes up.
Nathan's expression hardened slightly. The confused friend act was dropping. The serious businessman was stepping forward.
Amy, surely you aren't suggesting what I think you're suggesting.
I'm asking for an explanation. The timing is impossible. The anonymous tip. It all happened in 48 hours.
Nathan folded the paper carefully and handed it back to her. His movements were slow, deliberate.
Amy, I just spent the last 2 days fighting to unlock your grandfather's assets. I offered to house your herd at my own expense. I have been nothing but a resource to this family.
A resource who was conveniently ready to buy us out for pennies on the dollar.
Nathan turned his gaze to Lou. His eyes were cold chips of flint.
I made an offer because you were in crisis. That's what business partners do. If I wanted to hurt you, I would have done it much sooner.
Maybe you tried, but couldn't succeed.
Nathan looked at Jack. The air between them crackled. He looked back at Amy. He decided to play the victim card. He put his hands in his pockets, shaking his head with a look of profound disappointment.
I can't believe this. I come here to help you navigate a legal disaster, and I get interrogated on your front porch like a criminal.
If you didn't do it, Nathan, then tell me who did. Who else knew the inspector? Who else knew our financial situation? Who else had access to the barn?
How would I know that, Amy? But accusing me? After everything we've shared?
He let the word shared hang there, a reminder of the intimacy, the trust, the almost romance. It was a low blow. He was weaponizing her feelings against her judgment.
We haven't shared anything, Nathan.
Nathan stared at her. He saw the wall behind her eyes. He realized that charm wouldn't work. Logic wouldn't work. She had the physical proof, and she had the family backing her. He took a step back, his face shifting into something unreadable. It wasn't guilt. It was annoyance. The annoyance of a man who is tired of dealing with children.
You're asking me for the truth? Why? Why are you so fixated that I did it?
Low, ominous rumble of thunder in the distance. Nathan adjusted his cuffs. The movement was small, precise, and infuriatingly calm. He looked at Amy, then swept his gaze over the rest of the family. He didn't look like a man who had been caught. He looked like a man who was disappointed in the quality of the opposition.
You still haven't answered the question, Amy. Why me?
Because you're the only one with a motive.
A motive? What motive, Amy? I didn't do anything.
Oh, really? Because from where I'm standing, it fits your profile perfectly. You move in, you charm the owner, you find a leverage point, and you squeeze. You didn't paint the wall yourself, Nathan. You're too careful for that, but you hired the person who did. Just like how you called the hired inspector who failed to notice if it's really mold or not, just like you probably hired the people who canceled the retreat. You orchestrated a perfect storm to force a distress sale.
Nathan laughed. It was a cold, dry sound that lacked any trace of humor.
A perfect storm? That's a very cinematic way of putting it, Lou. Very dramatic.
He turned his body fully toward Lou. He stopped looking at Amy. He stopped looking at Jack. He focused all his attention on the woman who had driven through the night to expose him.
But if we're looking for someone with a flair for the dramatic, someone who is desperate to be the hero, someone who has been trying to drive a wedge between Amy and me since the moment we met.
Amy frowned.
What are you saying?
Nathan looked back at Amy, his face softening into a mask of pity.
Look at the facts, Amy. Who found the mold to be fake? Lou, who miraculously broke into a university lab at 4 in the morning and came back with a piece of paper that vindicates her entire worldview.
Are you accusing me now? Seriously?
Nathan took a step closer to the stairs, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that carried clearly in the silence.
She's been jealous of our partnership. She was losing control. What better way to get back in the center of the frame than to discover a sabotage plot and solve it single-handedly?
That is a lie. A sick, twisted lie.
Nathan shrugged.
Is it? You're the only one who touched the evidence, Lou. You're the only one with a chain of custody that involves a pill bottle and a graduate student. For all we know, you painted that spot yourself last night just so you could scrape it off this morning. If you can accuse me without any proof, then I can accuse you of that too.
The accusation hung in the air like toxic smoke. It was absurd. It was monstrous. And yet, it was brilliant. He wasn't defending himself, he was weaponizing Lou's own insecurity and intensity against her. Amy looked at Nathan, then she looked at Lou. Lou's face was a mask of pure horror. She looked at Amy, expecting immediate defense, expecting Amy to say something. But Amy didn't. She hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. She remembered Lou's erratic behavior. She remembered the jealousy. She remembered how badly Lou wanted to be right. That split second of hesitation was all Nathan needed. He saw it. Lou saw it.
Amy, you don't believe him.
No, of course not, but
It's all about perspective, isn't it? From my perspective, I'm a businessman trying to help. From her perspective, I'm a villain. But from where you're standing, Amy, ask yourself, who has more to gain by destroying our deal? Me or the sister who can't stand to see you succeed without her?
Nathan buttoned his jacket. He looked at Lou with pure hatred.
If we're talking about sabotage, Lou, I think the paint is on your hands.